Hello and welcome to another episode of The Really Show. I'm your host, Aaron Ross. Today's show, The Incredible Life of the Explorer Elisha Kent Kane. Or, The Explorer Life of the Incredible Elisha Kent Kane. Hey, if you like our show, we would love it if you would subscribe. Dr. Kane was a rock star of his day, although in the form of an explorer. Explorers were pretty sexy back then. Kane's accomplishments throughout his life were numerous and well celebrated in his time, but today his celebrity is not quite as well known. Kane was born in Philadelphia in 1820. The Kane family was a well-known Philadelphia family. His father, John Kinsing Kane, was a U.S. district judge, and his younger brother, Thomas L. Kane, managed to create quite a resume for himself as well. Some of Kane's ancestors were noted patriotic heroes and philanthropists of the Revolutionary War. At the age of 17, and with an eye on a career in civil engineering, Kane began his studies at the University of Virginia at Charlottesville. Unfortunately, a year into his studies, Kane contracted rheumatic fever. In what would plague him for the rest of his life, his case was severe, permanently damaging his heart, and ending his academic pursuits for a few years. Kane, weak of body for the remainder of his life, becoming seriously ill several more times, he remained strong of spirit. Having recuperated sufficiently, undeterred, Kane resumed his education pursuit, this time in the field of medicine at the University of Pennsylvania in 1842. At 23 years of age, Kane went into the U.S. Navy at the urging of his father. While awaiting his commission, he became a physician for a mission heading to China, headed by diplomat and politician Caleb Cushing. Kane's travels took him through Asia and the Pacific. He landed on the island of Luzon, and while on the island of Luzon in today's Philippines, he explored the active volcano of Taal, descending down in it to retrieve a sample of volcanic acid. He nearly got himself killed in the process. Boom! He also traveled through India and crossed the Himalayas. He left Cushing's group in 1844 for a 6-month stint leading a hospital boat at Whampoa, China. After that, he went through Egypt visiting the pyramids and other ancient monuments before going on to Greece. He arrived back in the U.S. in the summer of 1845. For the next several years, Kane served in a number of places, including the west coast of Africa, the Mediterranean, and the United States. Africa was of particular interest to him because of his family's ties to abolitionism, and he documented much about the slave trade in his letters back home. After his travels, Kane fell ill again and laid up for a time. But this is Elisha Kent Kane we're talking about, so he didn't sit still for very long and left before he was finished convalescing. He went to Washington, D.C. to request to be transferred from the Navy to the Army in order to serve in the Mexican-American War, motivated by the idea of military adventure and glory. But unfortunately, he once again became severely ill, and the dream of active military fighting ended. Instead, he was noticed by President James K. Polk and picked for special assignment to relay messages between Polk and his general Winfield Scott. Old fuss and feathers. Kane was happy with his assignment and stating in a letter to his father, quote, "Philadelphia Kane family is represented in the war. Kane did see fighting. Engaged in battle with the Mexican forces, he ended up capturing and subsequently saving the life of Mexican General Antonio Gaona. In what became an interesting turn of events, Kane was struck with congestive typhus fever. General Gaona showed his gratitude to Kane by bringing him to his home where the general and his family nursed Kane back to health. Not long after recuperating, Kane soon grew bored, and once again the opportunity for adventure came his way. Approximately 5 years earlier, in 1845, Sir John Franklin had set out on an expedition to find the Northwest Passage. Feared lost, a rescue expedition was formed to search for Sir Franklin and his crew. Under the command of Lieutenant Edwin de Haven, the expedition ship Advance launched in May of 1850. Their orders were to search for Sir Franklin, the crew, and the Northwest Passage. During their search, they discovered a couple of abandoned encampments they assumed were Franklin's. Continuing the search and heading further north, their ship became ice-locked, and they were forced to spend the winter in the Arctic. Many of the crew became ill with scurvy. As a doctor, Kane helped them by ordering them to exercise every day and increasing their rations. And in doing so, is credited with saving their lives. After escaping the ice the following June, Kane returned home a hero. Kane went on a speaking tour addressing crowds on his Arctic exploits. He filled halls to capacity, and his acclaim skyrocketed from his incredible accounts. He also received several scientific awards for his journeys. He was the equivalent of a rock star. He was a rock star. He used every media platform available to him to promote his theory that there was a warm water open polar sea around the pole. He believed that Franklin's expedition made it there. Sucker. And he managed to convince those with means to fund a second expedition for the open polar sea. Now, it was around this time that circumstances led Kane to meet Margaret Fox. Maggie Fox was a well-known medium, and along with her sisters had a role in the creation of spiritualism, the belief that dead spirits can communicate with the living and living can communicate with the spirit world. Kane's relationship with Maggie grew more intense over time, although he was more concerned about his reputation than about love. Kane felt that Maggie's mediumship was unladylike, sinful, and that her and her sister's work was fraudulent. Kane demanded that she stop being a medium. She did not, and they broke up. After a few months, Maggie wrote Kane saying she was unhappy and sought his advice. Kane was encouraged by Maggie's willingness and wanted her to get an education. He hoped that if Maggie was educated, his family would be more accepting of her. Kane and Maggie made an agreement that when he returned from his Arctic trip, if she completed her education to his satisfaction, then they could become engaged and eventually married. What? Kane was acutely concerned with his and the Kane family's reputation, so much so that he had a friend and his brother cover up the relationship with Maggie until his return. A month before he set sail on the second expedition to the Arctic, he once again became sick with rheumatic fever. He remained on bed rest, hoping to get better before his scheduled departure. He became well enough, and he and his crew set sail from New York in 1853. The Arctic trip was rough, and the winter was very harsh. The crew suffered many setbacks, sicknesses, near starvation, and temperatures so severe that they had to spend months at a time below deck. Still, Kane and his crew continued to search and go forward to try and find the open polar sea. Kane and crew continued the search expeditions for well over a year. They battled very intense Arctic winters and were saved from starvation by the Inuit people. When Kane finally returned in October of 1854, he was once again welcomed home a hero. Unfortunately, he was scandalized by engagement rumors to Maggie and felt family pressure to deny the relationship. Maggie refused to publicly state that the relationship was only platonic and eventually ended the relationship. Much of the media claimed the two were already married, as well as Maggie herself. Even today, no one knows if they were married or not. Kane was miserable about the breakup. Meanwhile, Kane's published book of Arctic explorations was a sensation, in differing parts due to aggressive marketing by his publisher, his continued speaking events, and the prominence of the Kane family. In 1856, he left for Liverpool and was entertaining the idea of doing two separate expeditions to find the open polar sea. Sadly, he arrived in England in such poor health that he collapsed. He left for Cuba to try and recuperate, and while there suffered 2 strokes, dying at the age of 37. His body was transported up the Mississippi River by steamboat, and then by train as it traveled back to Philadelphia. Many people stopped to honor him. Upon arrival in Philadelphia, his body lay in Independence Hall for several days. Kane's funeral and funeral procession were one of the largest and most well-attended in Philadelphia history. Eventually, he was buried in the Tomb in the Rock in the Laurel Hill Cemetery in the Kane tomb. While the open polar sea was never found and later discredited, Elisha Kent Kane's famed explorations were a media sensation of their time. Kane's legacy included many honors: medals from Congress, the Royal Geographical Society, the destroyer USS Kane was named for him, as was a later oceanographic research ship, the USNS Kane. He has a moon crater named after him. A prestigious Masonic lodge in New York is named after him. In 1986, the United States Postal Service issued a 22-cent stamp in his honor. The Geographical Society of Philadelphia created the Elisha Kent Kane Medal in his honor. Well, that's our show for today. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. Boom! While awaiting his commission, he became a physician for a mission headed to China